Parker talks about how Black, Indigenous people of color, um, how the young people often shine in collectivist spaces, and that helping young people to shift from blame to action is critical. And I think I was able to do that a little bit with one of my students of color who had accused me of being racist. And we talked about how, he needs to choose carefully. And rather than blaming, we didn't say this, but it makes me think about it now, how he can use it to empower himself rather than to blame. And I also that having the blame doesn't give us a sense of hope. So if we can act and make changes, that's a sense of hope and power. Also, the next page when she talks about, I'm going to read this, everyone is also located in the socio-political moment, meaning we teach through the times, for better or for worse. We simply cannot ignore the everyday. I'm always reminded that young people live in the world as do I. Every day bringing those experiences with them and often needing guidance about how to process them. Thus, even if we are personally hesitant to, say, talk about Black Lives Matter or to verbalize why our classrooms need to be queer-affirming spaces, our students need us to talk and teach about those ideas. If you've been listening or reading any of my stuff, this is something that I really struggle with as a teacher who is gay and have my own homophobia and my own fears, and yet I know that for my students, I need to be strong and not hesitant. And right now, as I've been working on the choice assignment, I chose to do a survey. And while I was developing the survey, I thought, gee, it might be neat as a way for introducing the survey to the kids to model myself taking the survey. And in so doing, I'd be coming out because I'd be sharing my identities. So I thought about doing that. And then as I continued on with the survey, finished the survey, shared the survey with an administrator, I'm now on hold because they're not sure they're comfortable with the survey. And I'm pretty sure it's because of the pronouns and the LGBTQIA plus things that come up on the survey. So it's a struggle. I'm having to wait right now. I mean, I was thinking of maybe even coming out, and now I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to do the survey, or certainly not do it in the way that I was going to. It's going to probably have to be revised, and I'm now waiting to go talk to our director or coordinator of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it's scary, but we'll see where it goes. There's a lot of talk in this chapter about reading logs and how they're not helpful. And it's interesting and something that I struggle with because I've had them in my curriculum or activities, and I've gotten rid of them because it seemed like a struggle to the kids, and then they're just pushing so much that the kids have to read for homework, they have to do at least this much, and I'm feeling like I have to be accountable for that, so I have to hold the kids accountable for that. And that's what they're talking about. Parker's talking about that when she began teaching, she was concerned about accountability, and that she started assigning the kids reading logs. And she said that it wasn't based on any sort of research that improved the literacy outcomes of readers. No research whatsoever. And she talks about how important it is that we base our practice on research. And she also said to she recommended that we go to organizations' position statements and suggested the National Council of Teachers of English. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to see what I find there to help me assess what I'm doing and make better decisions. And she also, back to reading logs, said reading logs are neither social nor meaningful to the learner, and that social and literacy should be, reading and literacy should be social. And then she also says, quote, a quick survey of our own readers' opinions on reading logs can provide some authentic, personalized data if you're still hesitant to eliminate them. I'm not hesitant to eliminate them. I'm going to do that next week. They're not having it for homework. But I would like to find their opinions on them. Because I had some parents that supported me doing them because said their kids needed more structure. But then she also talked, Parker talked about that instead of reading logs, she does reading conferences where she does quick check-ins and conversations with the students about what they're reading. And then she can get real-time, strong information, on-the-spot changes and suggested to help them, immediate feedback, all that. It just makes so much sense. And yet we often fall back to what we feel like we have to do, and it doesn't make sense. So I will be getting rid of reading logs, and I will be bringing in reading conferences. Thank you very much. And I was already convinced, but then when I turned the page, they talk about needing to heal reading trauma and curriculum violence, and they actually bring reading logs in here again. That curriculum violence occurs when educators and curriculum writers have constructed a set of lessons that damage or otherwise adversely affect students intellectually and emotionally. Then they go on to say reading logs and the stress, shame, and blame they can create for students and caregivers if they do not complete them is a type of curriculum violence. So I was already convinced, and now I'm being violent, so definitely getting rid of these. And reading trauma is a potential source of pain, insecurity, humiliation, stress. Again, reading logs would fit in there. She also says, gives a source, culturally responsive curriculum scorecard is a comprehensive starting place to assess what I'm doing. So I'm going to check that out as well. She also talks about using the term standard English, and how we shouldn't be doing that. And because of MCAS, I didn't used to do this, but I say standard English conventions. And they are standard English conventions, but we're saying that that's what's right. And that is leaving a lot of people out. So I am going to get rid of using that term, and I'm going to look more into, the other languages, African American, vernacular English. But I'm certainly going to add to my survey if I've done anything or do anything that is biased against their language or the way they speak at home. So I want to bring that in. I already have some things in there, so I'll have to double check. I might already have it. But I'm not sure to what extent, so I'm going to double check that. Also from this chapter, I want to look into the Learning for Justice, social justice standards so that I can check that out against how I teach and what I teach to assure that I'm addressing anti-bias practices. So I want to look into that as well. I am also interested in looking into and trying out the failure and growth, and having the students write about a time that they felt like failures and how you can use that to build community as you share with one another and see what you have in common, and also to look at how you can grow from it, and the whole concept of what smart is. And I don't know, I want to look into that more as well.